Everybody, MSOM 612, welcome from Rialto Beach in the great state of Washington. I am somewhere close to the Quillette tribal community, as well as two towns that you may or may not have heard of. The two towns are La Push, Washington, and Forks, Washington. Now, if you had a teenage daughter or teenage friends or something like that over the last few years and are familiar with the book series and movie series Twilight, you will know what I'm talking about when I say La Push and Forks. So what I've done is I've conducted some peer-reviewed research because I did not see the movies, I did not read the books. I promise you I have not done that. I've done some peer-reviewed research to find out about these two communities. So if you are part of Team Jacob, which I guess is the werewolf community, you are familiar with La Push. If you were part of the Edward community or the vampire community, you are familiar with Forks. And between Forks and La Push is the treaty line, and the two never got back and forth between each other, I guess, is the way that worked. So from La Push and Forks, Washington, this week to talk about Lesson 4 recap and Lesson 5 preview. So let's get started. Lesson 4, the discussion board this week was really talking about responding to a competitive threat. And as I mentioned in my post, this happened all the time. So it's not something that after a particular period of time you should really be surprised about. It's sort of like, well, what am I going to face today? But what happens is the way that you respond to these are very important. And so you'll see in mine, I put some bullet points on some things that you do and that you don't do, or at least that I would do and not do. Because what I found too often, companies would get focused on the blame game and how did that happen, or how did we not know about it, and all the other stuff. That's okay to get to at the end of the day, but when you get started, what you really need to do is respond to the threat that's in front of you. So focus on response and not blame is the key takeaway from what I posted there this week. The second thing this week is the application. We're talking about creating atmospheres, and we're creating atmospheres is what we do as managers. Hopefully what you do in creating atmospheres is you create an atmosphere where innovation is rewarded, where continuous improvement is encouraged, where organizational honesty is valued, and where balance is a key. Too often companies get too focused on innovation, they forget to run their day-to-day business. People who are too focused on continuous improvement forget to really go after the big new ideas. And so balance is critical when you begin to look at those from an organizational perspective. And so that was really the application that I wanted you to take away from that exercise this week. And then the course project edition was really looking at strategic issues. Again, you've done the external analysis, the internal analysis, and out of that you're seeing some issues in the business. I don't care what type of business that you have and how successful your business is. If you don't find issues in your business, then you're not looking hard enough. And so part of what I wanted you to do is take a look at the company that you selected through the first two exercises of external and internal evaluation and identify those strategic issues. Now, I didn't ask you in Lesson 4 to come up with solutions for those. That'll happen here in Lesson 5. So strategic issues took the front page as it related to your course project strategic plan for Lesson 4. All right, Lesson 5. Lesson 5, the discussion question, really talks about the process that you can put in place to evaluate strategic opportunities. Now that you're presented in Lesson 4 with all these strategic issues, how are you going to move forward and look at those that make the most sense for right now for your business? What type of analysis are you going to do? What type of processes are you going to do? You may want to look, as you're beginning to address these, in that toolkit. Remember that toolkit's there to assist you, and they have some wonderful ideas in there on how to evaluate potential opportunities. Now, this also has, and I think I mentioned this in the question, about opportunity cost, because if you put resources against one issue, that can take resources from another issue. And so just remember that anytime you apply resources in a given area, there is an opportunity cost for the actions that you're taking against that. So Um, Looking at that from a process to evaluate those types of opportunities. The application this week for many of your businesses will be looking at global opportunities. Many people get global because they think they have to get global. And for many organizations, that is absolutely true. But when you begin to go into a global environment, there are certain issues that you have to think about. There are certain differences in doing business in the United States and doing it elsewhere. Sourcing internationally and globally is an issue. Developing joint ventures is an opportunity, but it's also an issue because you're tethered to another organization. And so begin to look at, from an application perspective, what, from a strategic perspective too, are those issues when you go global. All right? And then the course project this week is about developing strategic alternatives. All right, let's follow down the pathway. You've done the internal evaluation, you've done the external evaluation first. You've found in the lesson 4 exercise strategic issues, and now you're creating strategic alternatives. So what I'm asking you to do is, for the issues that you have identified, I want you to provide at least 2 alternatives to address those issues. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to do that. In lesson 6 is when you're going to pick the best ones. But at least right now, if you're going to present to your organization or your boss some strategic issues, he or she is going to look back at you and say, okay, I recognize that those are issues. What do you recommend we do about each one of those issues? And so if you haven't thought that far about it, then your boss is going to turn and look at somebody else. And so don't bring forward, this is that old saying, don't bring me an issue if you don't bring me a solution. And so this is what you're really doing in this particular lesson, is you're taking the issues you identified in lesson 4 and you're presenting your supervisor some potential solutions for the issues that you have identified. All right? Have a great week. I'm going to be here for a few days, so the next video is going to be somewhere up here as well, as we continue to investigate the difficulties in the challenges between Team Jacob and Team Edward. All right? Talk to you soon.